Ladies and gentlemen, this is a completely different video. You've never seen anything like this on my channel before. Today I'm with Nigel Taylor, who I'm sure a lot of you will know. Hello, Nigel.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, yes.
How are you dealing with all of this lockdown? It's very difficult.
Oh, quite well. I go walking and cycling, and I've had quite a lot of work to do from home.
Okay.
So I've been quite well occupied, and of course I've got my model railway to play with.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, actually. I've got all of the bits for mine. I took it because I used to have one in our old house, and I took it all apart. And now they're all in bits in my room, and I'm just waiting for the new baseboard to come, or for us to get the wood so we can make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll post you pictures when it's ready.
Oh, please do, yes.
I'm hoping I can model Horsted Cane Station on my layout. Should be quite fun.
All right, prototypical layouts, that'd be good.
Yeah, it probably won't work. I'll probably have to start again, but there we go.
Scratch building, that's the difficult bit, yeah.
I'm hoping I can get most of my things off Metcalf. Because
yes, their models are very good.
They are good, yeah.
Go together well. Yeah.
Well, before I took my old layout apart, I used to have all of this Hornby Scaledale stuff, like the proper.
Yes.
But I kept all of the church ones, but I sold the rest because I needed some money to get a dumbbell. So.
Oh.
You know, priorities. So Nigel, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Where did you learn to ring? Tell us about yourself.
Oh, I learnt to ring in Chinner, in Oxfordshire, in 1970. The bells had not been rung for some years. They were in fact ringable. They had Bond of Burford girder headstocks, which were very corroded, but they were in fact ringable. In 1969, Taylor's rehung them with all new fittings in the old frame and recast the two trebles.
Okay.
And I went along to the tryout and the dedication. And shortly after that, in 1970, a school friend of mine said, they ring on Fridays, why don't we go along to a practice? So we went to a practice, and we started going on Wednesday evenings to a tied practice and then the open practice on Friday. And that's where it all began. And I've never stopped.
Well, that's good. It's a brilliant hobby. And hopefully, after all of this, after we get back to ringing, it'll all pick up again. And I'm a little bit worried, actually, because I'm worried that a lot of bands kind of won't pick up again if they were like on the edge of, if they were struggling to start with. I'm worried that there's going to be quite a few towers which don't start ringing again. But let's see and hope so.
I think it could go either way. Some ringers and some bands will be very, very enthusiastic about going back, simply because, one, it's a social activity, and two, it gets them out of the house.
Yeah.
So I do think quite a few bands will reform, but some bands that were really struggling, they might think it's a good point from which to stop, or perhaps to abandon a practice and simply ring on Sundays.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of change as well, but I know for me, for our band's looking forward to going back. We're just counting the days until we can, so let's hope so, very soon.
I hope so. Not too long now, I think.
I hope not. So Nigel, most of the people will know you as the bell tuner. You tune lots and lots of bells, don't you? So how did your interest in tuning come about? How did you get interested in this?
Oh, that's straightforward enough. When I learned to ring, from the outset, I was very interested in the sound of bells, and I began to identify the harmonics, the partial tones, as we call them, in bells at a fairly early stage. I also have very good pitch memory. So we would go and visit the tower, and I said, oh, yes, these are in G or whatever. Or occasionally, if I found Dove was wrong, Dove would say A flash, and I said, no, these are nearer A. So there was already a musical interest in bells, and it really developed from there. And by 1976, when I was in the sixth form, I'd applied for 2 jobs with the civil service and been offered both.
Okay.
I also wrote to the Whitechapel Bell Foundry to see if they had anything of interest. And I thought, I'll give it a whirl. They wrote back. I had an interview, joined the foundry, and sort of worked my way up from there. And I always thought, well, if I don't like it, I'll leave and join the civil service. Well, of course, I did like it, so I stayed.
Tuning is such a brilliant thing. I'm sure every bell you tune is different, I'm sure, and you never get tired of it, I'm sure.
No. Especially tuning old bells, because they're much more of a challenge. When you have a new bell, you design a new bell to suit what you want it to be. So apart from casting it sharp and pitch, it should be a fairly straightforward matter to put it in tune with itself and with the rest of the peal.
Okay.
But with an old ringer bell, so, let's say a Warner 8, I might have much more of a battle, a challenge, and it's good fun.
Is there a particular foundry which you found difficult to tune, or like a particular cast bell difficult to tune?
Not in particular. Most, especially the 19th century bells, some of the 18th century bells aren't quite so bad. Some of the 19th century bells, that's from Whitechapel and Warner's, or Blues of Birmingham. So, I mean, they're all a challenge in their own way. They tend to have very sharp hum notes, they have flat second partials. So, I mean, the approach is much the same. There aren't any in particular which are terrible. I mean, probably the worst bells I've tuned are Meneely's. Meneely of Troy, New York, the American bells. They're very dumpy, and they have an extremely large sound bow, very flared, and they have exceptionally sharp hums and flat second partials. So they're more of a challenge. But I would still take the same approach nowadays, and that would be to machine the outside of the bell, reduce its diameter, and push the partials in the right direction.
Yeah, because external tune is quite a new thing, isn't it? It hasn't been done before. So how did that come about?
Well, it came about. Well, I know from photographs, I've noticed that Warner's externally tuned one of the York Minster bells in 1913 or 14 when they rehung them. Okay. I don't know if they knew what they were doing, but they did it. And Taylor's externally tuned the treble at Chance Shrewsbury in 1914. And I don't know why they did it, but they did. So there were early examples. Meeks Watson adopted the system for tuning Meneely bells because you can put Meneely bells in tune with that system. Okay. And the only reason that I delayed introducing it was because I thought there would be opposition to it, because you are altering the appearance of the bell. When you cut the inside of the bell, then, I mean, it's all hidden away on the inside. Once you externally machine the bell ends up looking very, very different. So I thought there would be opposition. But in fact, I've encountered very, very little opposition so far because the results are so good.
Yeah, they are. It is surprising, but I've really liked external bells tunes. They're very good. And there must be so many different stages as part of your work as a bell tuner. So what's your favourite part of it? Is it like the end product or starting with it? Or
I think all of it, because in the end, when I was the tower bell manager at Whitechapel, I did everything from start to finish. I mean, I designed the profile. I sometimes made the profile. I did the moulding. I did the inscriptions. I sometimes cast the bells, and of course I tuned them. So I did the entire process. I think out of all that, the doing inscriptions and decorative board and so on, I found that a very satisfying job. I used to put my headphones on, and I used to have my iPod stuck in my pocket, and I used to listen to some music while I was stamping in the lesson inscription. I didn't like being disturbed, because obviously it's some sort of job you don't want to make a mistake. Right. But I found it, you were sort of shut away with the head buried inside a coat, doing the inscriptions all day long, and it was very satisfying. And of course, you do all this work, and when the bell's cast, there's your handiwork on display. Yeah. And unlike a park bench, of course, it can last for centuries, unlike 20 to 30 years for a park bench. So that's a very satisfying aspect of it. And then, of course, the tuning process, which has always been a fun job as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, it's like it's such a, you have your, when you've tuned about, it's going to be here for hundreds of years. You have your legacy will live on. It must
That's
be amazing.
Right. Oh, yeah, long after I'm gone, then all these rings of bells that I've tuned will remain.
Yeah, they'll all be here. It'll be amazing. So this is my own personal question here, but how many bells have you actually tuned?
It's thousands. And because I sometimes tuned something like 150 to 200 bells a year. Okay. And I tuned bells fairly continuously from 1985. So it is thousands. It yeah. I mean, it's probably those thousands, but it might be 2,000.
Blimey.
Because a lot of bells that went abroad, a lot of single bells. I've never added it all up. But, I mean, one of my tuning books does record how many bells I tuned within that book. But I've never done a complete total. It must be something like 2,000.
Oh, blimey. That's a lot. That's a lot. What has been your favourite bell you've cast and tuned? What's been your favourite ring or single bell or something like that?
Single bell? we did a 3800 weight Gillett and Johnston profile bell for a Carillon in the States. And I was particularly pleased with that bell. It was a very exceptionally fine bell. Then there was St. Barrion, when we added the tenor bell, which was 37.5 weights, and that I was very pleased. It's called Solomon. I was very, very pleased with that bell. There are lots of you see. Sometimes you would tune a fairly small bell, I think, 300 weights F, and bells do vary. I mean, with the best will in the world, you will have a variation in quality.
Yeah.
Within a batch, you cast 8 bells. One of them will be the best, one of them will be the worst, and the rest are sort of scattered about the middle. And sometimes you would tune a bell, and it was just one of those things. Everything went right, and it would be an exceptionally good bell. You hit the bell, and it just comes to life, sings away, and no beats. And you think, oh, you produced a particularly good bell. And it's not just the skill of the tuner; it's the fact that the casting, for some reason, it just works.
So what is the most high-profile ring or bell you have worked on in your career?
Oh, well, there's been a few. Well, first of all, there was in my earlier days, I helped to make Canterbury Cathedral bells. I didn't tune them; I helped to make them. Okay. But then I did a lightish 12 for Ballymena. They're a bit sort of controversial, but generally speaking, they're very well liked, and I was very pleased with them. I think that the problems that they do have are to do with the clappering rather than the bells themselves around the front.
Yeah.
I think they've got particularly long flights, and they're probably bells that would benefit from counterbalance clappers. But they're a nice little 12. Then I did St. Martin in the Fields, so that's a high profile job.
Yeah.
The bull ring, the first complete 16.
Yeah, I've yet to ring that.
Yes, I tuned the Perth bells, the Swan Tower bells. I tuned those. They're high profile. There's been quite a number, really. St Magnus and Martyr in more recent years. The barge bells, particularly.
Oh yeah.
The Jubilee bells, which went to Garlickithe, and of course more recently, the Ring of 8 at Linfield just did the first Wesley 8.
I like them.
And obviously the Anzac bell, with the 6.5 ton bell in Perth, which I tuned 2 years ago.
That's a very nice bell.
That's obviously very high profile, and that's another bell I must mention, which I was particularly pleased with, because
nice.
A lot of large bells are a bit growly, and this one wasn't. It was a very nice, smooth sounding bell. Exceptionally pleased with it.
It's very nice. I do like the Anzac.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not sure whether you're doing any work at the moment, but what's the next ring of bells you're working on?
I have one more bell to finish to tune Hanslope 7th. That finishes tuning the ring. It was a bell that went off to have its bolt holes welded up, and then of course came the lockdown. But I'm going the week after next to go and tune that bell. Okay. So that finishes Hanslope. Ledbury will be coming out fairly shortly, so I'll be tuning Ledbury, which is tuning 6 old bells, 2 replacements or recast bells, and 2 new trebles to make 10, so it's a ring of 10. And then what will I be doing after that? Stowmarket.
Where's that? Never heard of them.
Suffolk. Stowmarket and Suffolk. It's tuning 8 bells and 2 new trebles to make 10. Oh. So they're my next 2 complete rings to tune.
Okay, brilliant. There's a lot in the pipeline then.
Yes, there is. And of course, it's all been held up, but all it will do is just pile up. Yeah, in the end, it will all happen. It'll all get done.
Yeah, it will come back in a wave, I'm sure.
Yes, it will.
Throughout this, we've been dipping in and out of the new Lindfield bells. So, what of your opinions on the Wesley Foundry and the Wesley Group? How do you think their bells are? What do you think they're like?
Oh, the bells are very good. They're different from ordinary lone cast bells. There are several reasons. First of all, they're run completely differently. They're run from the bottom, and whereas you will find a certain amount of gas in most modern bells, well, most old bells for that matter. I mean, that applies to Gillett's, Taylor's, and Whitechapel bells. You will often find traces of gas. You don't tend to get any gas at all. They tend to be gas-free castings. And that in itself produces a slightly different character. They're moulded in a completely different system. from loam. They're made with patterns, and the letters and decorative friezes are attached to the pattern, and they can be made out of wax or silicon. And then after that, it's all the mold's rammed up. So they're made in a different technique. They're coated with a special spray to make sure the bell has a skin. The end result, of course, was that, I mean, Lindfield are a very musical ring of bells. I certainly didn't think they sounded like a Whitechapel ring,
No.
partly because there's been a modest shape change, partly, of course, because of the way they're made and the way they're cast. And I think, well, yes, there's a whole series of differences which add up to a different result. And I noticed when people started listening to the YouTube clip, they were making all sorts of comments. Some people saying they sound a bit like Gillis, they sound a bit like Taylors, they sound a bit like Isbells. And I thought, well, this is interesting because people obviously can't make up in their minds what they sound like.
They sound. I can't relate them to any other bell foundry or anything like that.
No,
I think they're
no, I
very
can't.
specific sound, but they sound so.
Yes,
good.
it's a specific sound. Yes,
they're amazing. Oh, brilliant job. Well, thank you for casting them for it. They're brilliant. I
that's
like them.
that's right. Yes.
We're very lucky to have them.
Yes, yes. There are obviously an enormous broom what you had before, but they're not just an enormous broom. I mean, they are an exceptionally nice little ring of 8.
Yeah, they are.
I've not heard any adverse comments about them at all. Even from people who are Taylor fans, they seem to like them.
Well, yeah.
Because the anti-Whitechapel brigade won't regard them as a Whitechapel ring because they're not. I mean, they really have no relation to Whitechapel because, of course, they're, apart from the fact they're slightly different shape, particularly the back bells, the whole process is different.
We were actually on the 8th of May going to ring the first peal on them, so we're so annoying.
Perhaps next month.
Well, yeah, hopefully. I don't know.
I'm hoping that by July that they'll open up the church and allow us to ring again. I mean, this can't go on forever.
No.
I don't want to become political at this point, but this can't go on forever. I think the longer it goes, the more damage it's doing to people.
Yeah.
A lot of people are suffering because of this, not just financially, but psychologically, especially people who live on their own.
I don't know whether it's all going to be like, oh yeah, you can all go at the same time, because I know a lot of towers are much smaller, and then a lot of towers are much bigger. So maybe like ground floor rings perhaps might come back first. I don't know.
Yes, possibly.
Something like that.
Certainly larger ringing rooms and larger rope circles.
Yeah.
I mean, the obvious one would be Merton College, where all the ropes are at least 6 feet apart.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nigel, for doing this. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
I did.
Very much.
Yes,
It was good. Yeah.
thank you very much, Ollie.
I hope so.
Yes.
Hopefully, people will enjoy this, and let me know what you think of this type of video. Until next time, I will see you soon.